Dear friends, welcome to the Single H Show presents Transparenting. My name is Michael Davis, and this will be our second week of Single H having a week off. We will begin the Single H Show back in 2025 as we continue our conversations on caring for our communities and supporting our LGBTQIA plus siblings throughout all things. But today I wanted to take a special moment to sit down and share about a truly good person who unfortunately left our planet this week. I want to take a few moments to talk on Transparenting about a political leader that made a lot of changes. I want to share about this individual because he is a person who in many ways stepped outside of political and faith expectations to make sure everyone was cared for. Unfortunately, this past week, former President Jimmy Carter passed away, and I am sharing this on Transparenting because he's a good man. And unfortunately, we do not have enough good people in our lives. I want to share about this individual because of statements that I have shared that have been direct quotes of President Carter. And dear things that he has vocally spoken out for, vocally spoken out against, and as a Georgia Christian, been an advocate for our LGBTQIA plus communities within his vocal response to so many loud evangelicals who have taken faith as a blockade to our LGBTQIA plus siblings. But this dear man who had so much to lose in his faith community and his political career, but still being a loud vocal advocate for our LGBTQIA plus siblings. Today I want to take a moment to celebrate President Jimmy Carter. As I do this, I want to use the words of one of his more well-seen quotes over the last few years, especially as Christian nationalism has overrun individuals' perspectives of what Christianity is, as Christian nationalism has infiltrated the church itself. Jimmy Carter, being a person of ethics, of morality, speaking out and uttering things such as, even though that we well know that homosexuality existed far before the time of Christ, Jesus Christ utters nothing about Christianity. Jesus Christ shares nothing about Christianity. Christ has never spoken out against it. Now, that's a paraphrasing, but this quote has popped up a lot recently as we have heard about the passing of President Carter. I want to lean into that because there's so much that is thrown at us scripturally that President Carter, he was a Sunday school teacher until he could not stand up anymore. A person of faith and faith values who was so worried about sin and lust that he asked forgiveness because at some points he lusted in his heart, if not outwardly, and he held himself to a higher standard because of that. Would defend the LGBTQIA plus siblings, especially in his time frame, early in the reality of HIV/AIDS, as we were trying to figure out what this disease was, trying to root its sources, as so many politicians and religious leaders grouped HIV/AIDS into what was referred to as a gay plague, something that could only happen to homosexuals as a curse of their lifestyles. Jimmy Carter existed as an individual who spoke out strongly and strong advocacy for our LGBTQIA plus siblings. President Carter, being an individual realizing the needs of housing insecurities, stepped up and was a physical, active person and trying to create housing for others. His lifelong support and active support in such causes as Habitat for Humanity, even into his mid to late 90s, still hammering nails and still building new homes for individuals to make it possible for them to have these homes. You know, President Carter went through all these things, so much to the extent that the only good man became a target of negativity from Christian nationalist leaders that grouped him away from Christianity and called him a liberal progressive. He was a liberal progressive, but so was Jesus Christ. If you look at everything that Jimmy Carter has done, that liberal progressive is just him fully actually living out his faith. One of the things that I've seen so frequently over the last few days is that how President Carter has not had to sell Bibles with his name on it to prove to other people that he was a Christian, that President Carter went out and lived and thrived and did what was right. I want to share all this with you, one, because how much I just deeply admire the existence and being of President Carter, but also we've kind of reached this moment in our existence that the conservative, hurtful voice has had its spoiler taking off, and there is sort of this unabashed hurt that is just spewing around over and over and over, and it's becoming very scary. And when I see individuals like President Carter living and thriving and being an example of what it means to truly live a true faith with others pass away, I become very afraid that we begin to thin out on the good moral friends that will always fight the good fight. And then one day it'll just be the loud voices that feel that they have won some battle and now have no worry about who they hurt with the things that they share. Now, I know that I have been a bit redundant with this statement, but man, I have seen it so much in social media lately, and I really feel that I am seeing it more because I have decided to talk, to not be silent, to not allow the louder, hurtful voices to have dominance, but to truly talk back. I have spent most of December advocating for our transgender community, and some of the things that said back, I don't understand how an individual can proclaim themselves to be a person of moral and just faith and just completely bury individuals in the ways that I have seen. Now, one of the things I have noticed recently, and it goes back as far as the election, and I'm seeing it more clearly in social media right now, is right now anyone that has a voice of advocacy shows a desire of sharing knowledge and information with others. And I have seen predominantly across the conservative response name calling and hurtful statements, and not addressing facts with other facts, not being a part of a conversation, but coming out hard with hurtful language made only to make other people stop talking. We cannot stop talking. especially now that one of the loudest active voices of our lives can no longer talk. The one thing that I have held so dearly within myself is, now that President Carter isn't there, who is next? Who is the next person that will be the moral and just person? Now, for years, I can share this. My dad, to my knowledge, always voted Republican except for the last time he voted. And my dad, as a person that he was a progressive-minded person, but found value in Republican politics. But even he, as a person that voted Republican most of his life, shared Jimmy Carter was always too good of a man to be president. And I really value that statement. I want to be too pure and too good to be effective at the hurtful things. And it really does. I mean, that statement alone starts to dissect what politics is. There is a way to be a pure, progressive, just person in a world of immoral politics and thrive. We just need another Jimmy Carter to do that, especially as we are about in January 20th, 2025, to inaugurate a person who is absolutely the polar opposite of everything that President Carter was. And I will be held to that statement. I will be held to that statement. He is nothing that Jimmy Carter was. And it's scary, because the last good moral person that had the spotlight has passed away, and our light needs to find another beacon to follow. There's been many. There's been so many that have done what's right, and even within themselves have had moments of flaws with them in themselves. I'll share with you, I praise the name of Fred Rogers so frequently, and then also have to admit that within his biography and the movie that they made about him, not the Tom Hanks movie, but the HBO movie that was about Fred Rogers' life, that he had a LGBTQ staff member that he asked to not practice his lifestyle so that children wouldn't see a person from his staff going into certain places. I mean, even the great Mr. Rogers had flaws. And then we look at a person like Jimmy Carter, who was so morally concerned that he confessed lusting after someone with his heart and not in action. That's important to me. It's important to me to know of a person that's willing to hold that standard and that focus. That's important to me, that our world has that kind of person in it. I just really hope to know who that person is going to be now. And I hope that they have a voice, and I hope that that voice penetrates the darkness, and I hope that that voice advocates for change and strengthens our marginalized friends and helps them find freedoms. And I hope that voice comes really soon. Thank you for allowing me to take this moment and this episode of Transparenting to celebrate a good man. Single H will be back beginning in 2025, and the Single H Show will return as we continue to do our best to advocate for our LGBTQIA+, specifically transgender siblings, in our journey in a new world. My name is Michael Davis. Have a week.